No one noticed the man in the corner booth when he walked into the diner that morning. No one except the waitress, who had already learned to notice everything. The bell above the door chimed softly, the same tired sound it had made 1,000 times before, and in walked a tall man in a dark coat, his posture stiff, his eyes heavy with something that looked like exhaustion rather than wealth. He chose the booth closest to the window, sat down slowly, and stared at his hands as if they no longer belonged to him. Emma wiped her palms on her apron and glanced at the counter clock. 6:12 a.m. The breakfast rush would begin soon, but for now the diner smelled of coffee, bacon grease, and quiet, lives moving forward one plate at a time. She picked up her notepad, took a breath, and walked toward the corner booth with the same gentle smile she offered everyone, whether they tipped well or not at all. "Good morning," she said. "Coffee to start?" The man looked up, startled, as if he'd forgotten other people existed. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, but clouded by grief. He nodded once. "Yes, thank you." As Emma turned to leave, she noticed the wheelchair beside the table. An elderly man sat in it, his body thin, his hands trembling slightly. His eyes wandered aimlessly around the diner, landing on the sugar packets, the napkin holder, the door, anywhere but the man across from him. "That's my father," the man said quietly, following her gaze. "He had a stroke last year. He doesn't speak much anymore." Emma smiled warmly at the elderly man. "Well, he picked a good place for breakfast," she said gently. "We make the best pancakes in town." The old man didn't respond, but his eyes flickered toward her voice. Emma felt a familiar ache in her chest, the same one she always felt around people who had been forgotten by time, by health, by the world's rush to move on. She brought the coffee back, placed it carefully on the table, and hesitated. The elderly man's plate from earlier sat untouched. Cold eggs, toast still whole, a cup of oatmeal with the surface hardened into a pale crust. "You didn't eat?" Emma asked softly, crouching slightly to meet his eye level. The billionaire, though she didn't know that yet, opened his mouth to explain, but the words stuck. "He has trouble," he said finally. "I try, but he won't take it. He gets confused, angry sometimes." Emma nodded. She had seen this before. Her own grandmother had spent her last years trapped inside a body that refused to cooperate with her mind. Emma had learned patience the hard way. "Would you like me to help?" she asked, her voice steady but kind. The man blinked. "Help how?" "Feed him," she said simply, "if that's okay." For a moment he just stared at her, unsure whether to feel relieved or embarrassed. This woman, this stranger in a faded apron, was offering to do what he, with all his resources, somehow couldn't. "If you don't mind," he said finally, "I don't want to make you uncomfortable." Emma smiled again, already pulling a fresh spoon from her apron pocket. "You won't." She warmed the oatmeal, added a little milk and sugar, and returned to the table. She didn't rush. She didn't talk loudly. She sat beside the old man as if she had nowhere else to be, lifted the spoon slowly, and waited. "It's okay," she whispered. "Just a little." The old man hesitated, his jaw tight. Then, almost imperceptibly, he opened his mouth. The billionaire watched, stunned. Emma fed him patiently, spoon by spoon, wiping his mouth gently when needed, murmuring encouragement like a mother to a child. She spoke to him about nothing and everything, the weather, the jukebox, the smell of pancakes, never once speaking about him, always to him. And slowly, the plate emptied. The billionaire felt something crack inside his chest. He had spent his life solving problems with money, boardrooms, acquisitions, numbers that rose and fell at his command. But this quiet act of dignity, was something money had never taught him how to do. When Emma finished, she stood and smiled. "There we go," she said. "You did great." The old man looked at her then, really looked at her, and for the first time in months, his lips curved into something that resembled a smile. Emma didn't see the tears in the billionaire's eyes as she walked away. Later that morning, when the rush came and went, Emma found a folded napkin on the table. Inside was a generous tip, far more than anyone ever left. She frowned, confused, and tucked it into her apron, meaning to thank the man before he left. But when she looked up, the booth was empty. 3 days later, Emma was called into the manager's office. Her stomach tightened. She ran through the possibilities in her mind. Had she done something wrong? Had someone complained? She wiped her hands on her apron and knocked softly. Inside sat her manager and the man from the corner booth. He stood when he saw her. "Emma," he said, his voice steadier now. "My name is Daniel Harper." The name hit her like a wave. Daniel Harper, the billionaire philanthropist, the tech mogul whose face was on magazines, whose donations built hospitals, whose net worth made headlines. Her breath caught. Nice to meet you, she managed. Daniel smiled, but there was no arrogance in it, only gratitude. I came to thank you, he said, properly. For breakfast? She asked, still unsure. For my father, he corrected gently, for seeing him, for treating him like he still matters. Emma swallowed. Of course he matters. Daniel nodded, as if those words were a revelation he'd been waiting to hear. I've hired the best doctors, the best nurses. But somehow, in all of that, I forgot something simple. Kindness, patience, humanity. He reached into his coat and placed a folder on the desk. This diner is closing next month, he said. The owner can't keep it afloat. I've purchased the building, the business, the debt. Emma's heart raced. You did what? I'm keeping it open, Daniel. Continued. And I want you to be the manager, with benefits, paid training, and a flexible schedule. Emma shook her head, overwhelmed. I don't understand. Daniel's voice softened. My father built his life feeding people, literally. He ran a small cafe for 30 years. When he got sick, I promised I'd take care of him. I thought money was enough. You reminded me it isn't. Tears filled Emma's eyes. I was just doing my job. No, Daniel said. You were doing something far more important. He paused, then added, there's more. I'm starting a foundation in my father's name, for caregivers, for waitstaff, aides, anyone who does this quiet work every day without recognition. I want you to help me shape it. Emma could barely breathe. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Daniel smiled. Say yes. She did. Months later, the diner buzzed with life again. New paint, new menus, but the same warmth. Emma stood behind the counter, confident now, guiding a young waitress through her first shift in the corner booth. Daniel sat with his father. Emma watched as Daniel picked up a spoon, waited patiently, and fed his father with the same gentleness she once had. Their eyes met across the room. Emma smiled. Daniel nodded. And in that small, ordinary diner, something extraordinary lived on. The truth that compassion doesn't require wealth, only a willing heart, and that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change not just one life, but many.